Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I'm here today in Tallinn, Estonia, by the gracious invitation of the Estonian Defense Forces, specifically the Support Command Supply Battalion, who keep track of a bunch of the Estonian military's older firearms, and we're taking a look at a bunch of them. Specifically today, a Norwegian Våpensmia NM-149S. This is a Norwegian sniping rifle that was developed from, well, from originally a German Gewehr 98 receiver, which is kind of cool. Developed for the Swedish military, and then a bunch of them, a couple hundred of them, were transferred or sold to the Estonian military about 2010 as part of a larger Norwegian arms sale package to Estonia, and so they ended up here in Estonia, where they were used not so much as sniper rifles, but as designated marksman's rifles. So the overall unit organization here at the squad level is a 9-man squad with 1 man as the designated marksman. Those designated marksmen used a variety of different guns in Estonian service, one of them being this, the NM-149S. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at it, because it doesn't look like that fancy of a rifle, but there's a lot of really good stuff that went into this. These were manufactured by a Norwegian company named Våpensmia, and they're based on a commercial hunting rifle design. Specifically, it was the VS-84S, which is still marked on the receiver here, and this one is actually a very low serial number, number 21. Note the original German markings still on the receiver. Norway had a tremendous number of Kar 98Ks that just happened to be left over in Norway after World War II, and they made substantial use of them in the Norwegian Armed Forces for decades afterwards. Now, the action, the receiver are still Mauser 98. You can see there's still even a stripper clip guide in here, bolt release, cocking mechanism, all that's standard Mauser, but a bunch of changes were made outside of those elements. Most significantly, it was given a detachable magazine, so we have a mag release lever here in the front. Pull that down, you get a 5-round detachable magazine, chambered for 7.62 NATO. The bolt handle was bent down to accommodate the scope, and the safety was also changed to accommodate the scope. So instead of being a 180-degree lever, it is essentially about a 90-degree lever. This is the fire position. Flipped up like that is the safe position, and that was done simply because there's not enough room with the scope bell to flip it all the way over. The typical scope used on these was a Schmidt Bender fixed power 6x42, which is what's still on it here in Estonian service. The markings here are a bit canted compared to the rest of the scope body, which is mounted nice and level, of course. That's probably due to the scope being reworked at some point, repaired by the Estonian armorers, who didn't give any particular attention to lining it up. They just put the scope bell back on line now. We have an interesting accessory here. This is the action and scope cover, held in place just by Velcro, something to give it a little bit of camouflage in the field. Kind of a cool piece there. The scope rings are detachable, so if I rotate these levers back, we can slide the scope off the back of the action, like so. The idea would be when you're not actively using the rifle, the scope comes off, and it can be stored and carried in a hard plastic protective scope case. So, just like that. Probably have a cleaning brush in there as well normally, but that's not in there at the moment. Note the use of the American push-the-dot style snap. There's yet more cool anachronisms here. That dates back to World War I as a snap style. The optics rail here also includes a rear aperture sight that's dovetailed in. On the early versions of the NM-149, the sights were actually removable, the iron sights, and there was a compartment in the stock to store them. That was later updated to this configuration. The early guns also had a relatively light barrel. Later upgrade replaced, well, in this case, this is actually technically an NM-149 F1. The Norwegians use F as an update number, so F1 is the first modification, F2 is the second, the equivalent to the US A1 or A2. Anyway, the F1 pattern went to added some pillar bedding under the barrel and a Norwegian G3 flash hider. So that's on there now. And this has the rather heavy 21 millimeter in diameter barrel. It's about 3/4 of an inch Imperial. So it's a heavy rifle, but it's, I expect, a very accurate rifle. This texturing on the pistol grip may look a bit crude, but it is quite deep and seems like it would give a really good grip, especially in the cold and even perhaps with gloves on. And then we have adjustable spacers in here that you can add or remove to set the length of pull to whatever you prefer. These rifles were developed circa 1985, again as a commercial hunting rifle, entered service with the Norwegian military in 1988, and served until 2013. I don't have any specific numbers on how many were acquired by the Norwegians, unfortunately, but the Estonians ended up with a couple hundred of these, give or take. The trigger on this looks like a standard 98K trigger, but it is actually a really nice two-stage trigger. So there's an easy take-up and then a very light, crisp, clean break. Really good trigger in there. In Norwegian service, these were phased out approximately 2013, and they were replaced by the HK417. The arms sale to Estonia seems to have been, it was more like 2010, so I suspect some of these were probably sold out of service before they were formally replaced, with the Norwegians knowing that a replacement program was going on already, and they were already doing the sale of Browning M2s, MP5s, G3s to Estonia, and so they threw in some of these at the same time. In Estonian service, these were sometimes disregarded or downplayed as being not particularly tactical looking rifles, when in reality they were in fact very capable rifles. And I have no doubt that the guys who actually were issued these things probably really appreciated them. So today they have been phased out of the Estonian Defense Forces inventory by the new 7.62 NATO LMT rifles, the R20Ls, but they are still being used with the Estonian Defense League, which is sort of an equivalent to the U.S. National Guards, more of a paramilitary volunteer organization. So very cool to get a chance to take a look at this. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Big thanks to the Estonian Defense Forces and the Supply Battalion in particular for giving me access to it to film. Thanks for watching.